Now, let's go into those smaller chiclets and break those apart one by one. So if we decompose the broker organizational reference model a bit, we come up with three big functions. One is business and technology management, another is cloud governance and security, and last is cloud operations and support. Let's take them one at a time. The business and technology management function is really where, again, as you're being a broker organization, you are behaving like a provider. You're actually managing, and understanding the business cloud requirements. So you have a requirements management process to help prioritize which providers and which services you'll bring into the enterprise. You've got a product management kind of a function, because when you present this catalog of services, it's almost like a product management model where, again, you've got requirements, then you're managing the product portfolio, the service portfolio. So you do need to think like a vendor organization in managing what you've got in the portfolio, how it meets the business requirements. You've got to have a catalog management function where you're integrating in your master broker catalog all of the catalogs or subsets of the catalogs of multiple providers. So you do have a catalog management function. There's a pricing capability in this responsibility set where you're setting pricing to your customers in the catalog. That pricing has to obviously either be a roll-up of the provider pricing you're getting from the providers, or it might have a markup or something where you're actually adding a little bit of value add. And so the whole pricing strategy of this has to be taken into consideration. And how you're going to pass through pricing from providers, mark up pricing from providers, how you're going to do the accounting and billing and chargeback from that perspective comes into some of these discussions. There's a benchmarking responsibility in this, where you're actually comparing your services portfolio to other external service providers, because you really need to know if your services are on par, both from a SLA and contractual perspective, as well as from a performance and pricing and availability perspective. So you always should be comparing what your services are and your capabilities are versus, external service providers to make sure you're in the ballpark of best in class. Whether you want to or not, as a broker provider, you will be compared to third-party service providers. It's unfair, it just is what it is. So you might as well just get used to it and be proactive with a benchmarking process. You may be doing service development. What I mean by that is you could be offering your own value-added services to provide through your catalog. You could also be teaming with your providers to help them develop new services that meet requirements. So there's a service development function. You will be providing cloud architecture support. You might be offering cloud platforms and frameworks to facilitate application development in your to-be cloud strategy and framework. You'll also be doing some cloud API management. So this brokering model is essentially aggregating all of the APIs from the multiple providers you might be teaming with. You need to know what their APIs are. You need to understand at a detailed technical level how they work within the services by a given provider, how they compare with equivalent services from other providers, and from a brokering perspective, those APIs become abstracted. The broker helps give you a set of neutral APIs to build applications against, but you need to understand the mapping of the broker neutral APIs to the provider specific APIs, which other than the standards-based APIs like CloudStack and some others, they'll be proprietary. So there is an API management function. And then two portfolios to manage, the service portfolio, broadly speaking, and the provider portfolio. So, there's other functions in this bucket, but these are the main ones from a business and technology management that you've got to think about. There is the business side of this, which helps implement the business model. There's the technology side, which is all about architecture, platform, frameworks, APIs, etc. Now, the other of these three, the second one is governance and security. So what a surprise. I put those together, And again, not necessarily the most exhaustive, but these are the main things to be thinking about. There's the whole cloud governance lifecycle definition, which we'll remind you of ours in a second. But you should be thinking about the end-to-end governance requirements of the enterprise. And then across that governance lifecycle, what are the policies that are going to be critical for the enterprise to have success? Not only security and privacy policies, but enterprise architecture policies, provisioning policies, application provisioning policies, so on and so forth. How will you decide which policies are going to be critical for your cloud model? Then there's the design of a governance model or the extension of your current IT governance model to include or to accommodate cloud computing. So there are some cloud unique things that should be considered, and we obviously would prefer that you extend or add cloud governance into your existing IT governance framework. But you do need to think about the cloud unique policies and governance enforcement requirements. Then there's the governance execution and the enforcement of these policies via the governance model. There's the overall oversight and monitoring. So that is traditionally done by oversight boards, but you can also do monitoring and you know, understand which triggers should merit some kind of oversight activity through the use of your governance model. You need to think about the tools and the integration for security, the tools and the integration for monitoring, application monitoring, and cloud management monitoring. Those things are going to be important from a governance perspective. Monitoring helps you get visibility into things that matter from a governance and performance perspective. Cloud security, of course. I mean, I could spend a day on this topic, but just suffice it to say that the whole security aspect of cloud needs to be considered. Cloud security, again, should be an extension of the enterprise security model, of the enterprise security architecture, should tie in with the identity management capabilities of the enterprise. Again, things to consider. That's a big bucket of topic right there under cloud security, but it's here. Risk and compliance issues that need to be accommodated in cloud. And then lastly, you certainly need a process for sustaining the cloud governance requirements. So once you implement cloud governance, you just can't just put it in place and forget about it. You got to sustain it, maintain it, update it, so it's a living process. Same with an IT governance process. They're living, so you got to sustain them. So that's the governance and security topic. Again, I could spend 2 days on all these bullets, 1 day on security, but you understand the picture. This slide shows the cloud governance lifecycle that we developed a couple of years ago. And what we did, if you were a part of that webinar, you can access it on our website if you didn't see it previously, is we started out with these 5 horizontal slices from strategy and planning into architecture, design, deployment, down into acquisition, vendor selection, contract negotiation, then into the operational resource provisioning and management processes, and then down into operations and support and runtime management. So we decompose those 5 horizontal bars into a series of chevron processes that will help you understand what you need to accommodate in cloud governance. And we actually have this stuff templated out so you can actually quickly go through and design a cloud governance model for yourself that maps into these chevrons. That's just, I bring that up just for reference. The third area of responsibility is ops and support in the organizational reference model. And again, operations and support includes cloud monitoring being performed by the various cloud management technologies, as well as application monitoring tools and agents that you'll have integrated in to you know, monitor applications being built on top of cloud services. You need alert and alarming capabilities. A big one is help desk support. How are you going to manage help desk level 1 to level 3, or however you break it apart, in such a way that if you're the first point of contact for help desk, how do you integrate with the service providers' help desks for support on their services in such a way that it's seamless to your customers, but yet allows you to have your service providers provide deep, detailed technical knowledge of their services as you've deployed them. So you really have to think about the help desk support. You could also have the hooks in for IT service management integrations, integration to things like ServiceNow or other idle sorts of frameworks, whatever you've got. just to give you had the help desk, the ticketing processes, all that stuff contemplated. And then overall cloud operations and management. So again, this is a pretty broad topic, but you really just need to think about that you're the call, you're the person, the broker organization will get the call if something breaks. How are you going to support your users? So the broker role, as I'm looking at the blue bumper sticker at the bottom of the slide, you're essentially becoming a cloud provider by proxy. What I mean by that is if you step in and you're acting as a broker, even though you're brokering third-party services from Amazon, Google, Rackspace, whoever, you're still considered the provider by proxy because you're the last link in the chain. So you have to make sure you've got a complete end-to-end customer support process. Even though it may be Amazon at the back end, you're still accountable for supporting your customers. And if you want to value and maintain those customer relationships, you better make the support experience seamless, rapid, best in class. And so this is a real key point of this whole model. So this next slide here just talks about the provider by proxy dynamic. I'm showing the consumer in the purple bar and the broker and the green with the providers inside of the broker. That's how it feels to the consumers. And again, that makes the brokering organization act as a provider. And we've made this argument before that if you're stepping into the role as a service provider or a provider by proxy, you better behave like a best-in-class provider. Behave like you own the service contract. Behave like you want to sustain the customer relationship. Behave like a best-in-class service provider. And to many organizations, it's either an opportunity to reinvigorate a somewhat negative relationship with the business, or on the other hand, it's an opportunity to rebuild the trust, become the trusted advisor back to your business. So that's the organizational reference model piece of our broker model. Now let's go into the technology side of the cloud broker reference model. So we'll call this the cloud broker technical reference model. So first, before I get into that, I just want to talk about a broker in a generic sense. So what I'm showing on this illustration is a generic broker platform idea with a self-service portal up at the top. I've got basically two slices to this model. I've got a business and consumption set of functionality, which is all about managing the business aspects of cloud computing consumption, the marketplace, the pricing comparisons, the service catalog, the provisioning of services, performing the metering, billing, accounting kinds of issues, the broker service catalog. All those things are kind of on the business side of a broker and what it does to enable consumption of services. Then there's the API abstraction and integration functionality of a broker, and that really is all about abstracting provider-specific APIs and getting a set of neutral cloud APIs that your developers can access without having to create a dependency to a specific provider at the back end. We'll go into more technical details of that later. Main point is this API abstraction and provider and API integration function really matters because you're, again, integrating multiple providers and multiple provider services into your broker strategy. The broker's job is to establish a set of neutral APIs that map to the provider's proprietary APIs so that when you build apps in the broker, you're not creating a dependency that you'll be concerned about later. So these are the two broad functions of a generic broker. In reality, the broker technical reference model breaks these into four. So we'll go through these four pieces of the broker technical reference model in sequence. So first, the cloud brokering and marketplace functions. And as we're showing here, in the brokering and marketplace functions, we have a requirement to have a self-service portal. Of course, you got to helping it make it easy to consume services, so a self-service portal has to have the hooks for authentication, buying limits, etc., people get access via the portal into a marketplace. That marketplace is essentially presented to the consumers as a catalog with a set of options and pricing and support, use case templates, solution architecture templates, those kinds of things, educational content, things that help consumers know what services are available, how to use those services to solve business problems, how to consume them via the service catalog, be able to do pricing comparisons from vendor services to other equivalent services you may have in the catalog. And then once that consumption happens, how you do reporting and dashboard management, metering, billing, accounting, those kinds of things would be in this space as well. So the brokering and marketplace functions are all about how do you present to the consumers this aggregated marketplace of services via a catalog so they can compare, consume, and drive business value. So that's a key part of the brokering reference architecture that you have to have in place minimally to A, be considered a broker, but B, to be able to operate as a broker organization. Now, the next piece within a broker and the technical reference model is the application development environment. So within the cloud application development environment is, the whole idea is to build apps. That's why we consume cloud services. We're building new apps, new business capabilities. So we need a development environment, IDE, development tools to build apps. We need to build those apps to a set of abstracted APIs that the broker offers. Again, abstracting the provider-specific APIs so that you're building your app to the broker-neutral APIs. It needs to provide application development frameworks to make application development very rapid, to make application development fit your enterprise, incorporating your policies. And this is, again, where if you have your own application framework for your enterprise, you can put in the hooks for application monitoring, and you can put in your security policies, some of those kinds of things. QA test requirements have to be in there. You definitely want to have some kind of a DevOps support model so you can support the rapid development and then transition to operations for these cloud capabilities. Again, a high-level list. There's a lot more details that go into this, but this application development environment is key. That's why we're using cloud. That's why we're interested in it. It's developing apps faster, better, cheaper. It's all about the business. Now, platform as a service, DevOps, software as a service, those things are all about faster deployment of apps and the faster deployment of business capabilities. But the cloud application development for these cloud-native apps is a pretty vibrant sector these days. If you're not paying attention to it, you need to. There are a lot of solution providers in the space that I'm going to call beyond platform as a service. There's a lot of platform as a service capabilities out there that are very valuable, and we've actually done quite a bit of work in that space. We have actually a platform as a service webinar that compares platforms as a service and how you can compare them to one another. But these native cloud application development tools are beyond platform as a service. And what you've got to do when you start thinking about cloud native app development is you've got to figure out, for my new application requirements, what services do I have available from an infrastructure, platform, storage, et cetera, that let me build apps, and how many providers do I want to build to? This is where the broker strategy comes into play, because I can build an app that may leverage all services from one provider, or I can mix and match services from multiple providers to build an app, or I have lots of options, right? So as I build these new native apps, pay attention to how you build them. There's another slide here I'll show in a minute that goes into a little bit more detail. The other thing to consider is that how am I going to migrate legacy apps into this cloud environment? That's the red normal distribution curve in the bottom left. And as we've looked at this space quite a bit and decomposing and migrating apps to the cloud, there's some work to do. Some apps that are already virtualized can be moved over into a cloud environment and exploit infrastructure as a service capabilities. But if you're going to decompose a legacy app at the application layer, At the database layer, at the user experience layer, you really need to do some more analysis on which cloud services will map into that legacy app to give you the equivalent or better user experience while providing a superior cost performance to the enterprise. So these are just things to consider. When you're developing cloud-native apps, this is new, so there's things to consider. You've got to build failure into the app, knowing that commodity servers, commodity blades are going to fail, so you have to build recovery into the application logic. You should be building apps as stateless as possible, again, to accommodate infrastructure as a service failures and commodity hardware failures. You will have to realize that I can have application components and logical application architecture tiers in different clouds or spread across different cloud services. So I've got an application architecture set of challenges to deal with. I want to build these apps where they natively can exploit the scale of cloud. They can scale up and out very, very quickly and seamlessly because I'm building them to a cloud-native set of services. Storage, and in particular, databases behave differently in the cloud. You don't have the normal SQL-based approach to database design or architecture, and so you really have to think about your data models in a different way when you're building apps in the cloud. So, this is a very dynamic space. These native cloud app development tools are coming on. They're fairly new. There's some exciting developments, so it's one to pay attention to. But it's one that if I'm looking at a brokering strategy, I want to make sure that my brokering platform supports and enables this cloud-native application development set of requirements.